Firefighters searched that house once and found nothing wrong. 3 hours later, they went back in and found a family of 8 who never made it out. That's the shape of what happened on a Friday morning in July, on a quiet street called Riverside Trail, in a Michigan township of about 15,000 people most of the country had never had a reason to think about. The first 911 calls came in between 8:30 and 9 a.m. Deputies and firefighters checked the property and left, finding no sign of trouble. It wasn't until 11:42 a.m., when callers reported white smoke pouring from the house, that they went back. This time, they weren't walking into a fire that had simply gotten out of hand. They were walking into the end of a family of 8, a mother, a father, and 6 children between the ages of 5 and 15, and the beginning of a story that, days later, this small community still doesn't fully understand. Before any of that, this was just a family, in the way most families are just families, ordinary right up until they aren't. Amanda Karolkiewicz went by Mandy. She was 39 and worked as a substitute teacher at an elementary school nearby. Her school district would later say she showed up for kids on their hardest days with more patience than the job technically required, the kind of teacher students remember by name years later. She and her husband, Christopher, 47, were raising 6 kids together in that house on Riverside Trail. 4 of them were biological. 2 were adopted daughters. The oldest child was 15. The youngest was 5. Less than 2 weeks before any of this happened, Mandy had taken her 2 adopted daughters on a trip to China. She posted about it online the way any proud mother does. Smiling photos, a family milestone, nothing that reads any differently now than it would have read to anyone scrolling past it in June. That's the detail I keep coming back to, honestly. There was no visible seam. Nothing about that house, from the outside, looked like anything other than exactly what it appeared to be. When investigators reconstructed that Friday afterward, the timeline itself became one of the hardest parts of the story to sit with. That first call, the one where deputies found nothing, they now believe whatever happened inside that house had likely already happened, or was actively happening, while responders stood in the yard and saw no sign of it at all. It wasn't until the second wave of calls, nearly 3 hours later, that visible smoke finally brought them back. Inside, they found all 8 members of the family. Days later, the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office confirmed what the autopsies had already shown. Mandy and all 6 children died of gunshot wounds. Their deaths were ruled homicides. Christopher's death was ruled a suicide. Investigators also determined the fire hadn't started on its own. It had been set deliberately, in more than one part of the house, including the basement, sometime after everything else was already over. Michigan State Police arson investigators are still working through exactly how and when. The sheriff's office has been direct about what this is. A murder-suicide. Not a mystery about who was responsible. That part, painfully, was never in question. I want to pause here for a second, because this is usually the point in a video like this where things get dressed up for suspense, and I'd rather just talk to you straight instead. If you're the kind of viewer who'd rather sit with a hard story honestly than have it stretched out for effect, that's what this channel is trying to be. Hitting subscribe helps more of that reach people who want it. No documented history of violence at that address. Deputies have said, on record, that the home had no prior police calls of any kind. A domestic violence counselor in the area, speaking generally about cases like this one, made a point that's worth sitting with longer than a headline usually allows. Communities are shocked by cases like this precisely because they happen in neighborhoods that look safe, inside families that look fine from every angle anyone outside ever had access to. That's not a twist. That's just an honest answer to the question everyone watching this is probably asking right now. Why? And the honest answer is, nobody outside that house knows yet. Maybe nobody ever will. This small community has been doing what communities do when something like this happens. Mandy's parents released a short statement calling her a kind and devoted soul who loved her family and her students. This case is still open, in the only sense that actually matters. Nobody fully understands why. And if this channel has one rule I try never to break, it's this. I'm not going to pretend I have an answer I don't.